What's up, everybody? Welcome to a special episode interview with Matt Verderame of Sports Illustrated. We survived the draft. Matt, how are you feeling?
Good. Refreshed after a few nights of sleep. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good, man. Just same. It was like kind of a blur all 3 days, and then it's like Sunday. It's covering all the UDFA's, camp invites, and then we got some news today that I figured we could talk about briefly. I went live about an hour ago when it happened, but we didn't have all the details, and we still don't. But Travis Kelce was extended for a couple of years, well deserved. I would love to hear your thoughts on what you think the contract could look like, even though I understand some of it's speculation, but I think it's a well-deserved pay raise of some sort for him. He'll become the highest tight end in the game. But I also wonder if it'll lower his cap hits. Even Spot Track says at the bottom here, an assumed lower cap hit for 2024 to maybe make some room for some other guys. Would love to hear your thoughts on it.
Yeah, I think it probably will lower his cap hit this year. We'll see what it does to it next year. I would think it's probably a little less impactful next year than it is for 2024. But um, I think the bottom line is the Chiefs gave him a raise. I think it's a little bit of a thank you for all the years that he's been in Kansas City and what he's done for the team. I also think that it's basically going to be year to year. Like there's guaranteed money in it this year, and then after that, it seems like the way it's worded that there's not. And so if that's the case, it's like, look, man, if you want to keep playing, you'll keep playing here. And if you're ready to retire, fine. When there's no dead money, there's no problem. Walk away on your own terms. So I think really this was the Chiefs giving him a raise and essentially just saying, look, if you want to keep playing, you can keep playing. But if you don't want to, then you're going to at least retire a Chief.
Yeah, I love it. Mahomes tweeted after that and said, something to the effect of, I told you guys wouldn't let him play anywhere else, so congrats. And I don't know what role Mahomes had in that, but I love to see it. And I also love to see they're just taking care of their cornerstones. Chris Jones paid. Mahomes already paid, but got that pay raise via the restructure last fall. And now Kelce, then obviously more cornerstones on the coaching staff. They extended Spags. That's earlier, but then they just extended Veach, Mark Donovan, and Andy Reid. So Andy Reid is the highest paid coach now as well, with Kelce, highest paid tight end, Mahomes, highest paid QB, Chris Jones, highest paid DT. So they gave the raises there to the centerpieces, man. You love to see it.
Well, yeah, look, this has been also made available to them because they've drafted so well. I mean,
Yeah.
you couldn't do this if you didn't draft well. They've drafted as well as any team in football over the last 3 to 4 years. And when you do that, you have a lot of young, inexpensive talent that is producing. And so you can afford to pay Mahomes and make him, an incredibly high paid quarterback. It's always hard to say highest paid because it changes hour to hour. But
Right.
now you're paying Kelce the most money for a tight end. You're paying Chris Jones record setting money. You're probably eventually going to pay McDuffie an amount of money that if he's not the highest paid corner, he's going to be damn close to it. You can do that. You can do it because you have a team that has so many guys on rookie deals. And
Yep.
they also have guys who, maybe aren't on rookie deals, but guys who are values, guys like Drew Tranquil, guys like Charles Menahu, guys that you can just, you can put in there and it's not going to cost you, Justin Reed. It's not costing you a fortune and you're getting really top tier production.
Yeah, man. Super happy with how I feel like every year Brett Veach is just getting better at drafting. The first couple, they were a hit maybe there, here or there, but I just feel like more and more now they're just getting more consistent and getting value in the draft, especially in the later rounds. And I definitely want to get there right next. But before we do, I want to plug something that you've been doing, and it's gone really well. This is obviously your Twitter account. If you guys want to follow Matt for some awesome NFL and Chiefs content, feel free to give him a follow. But I also pinned to the top comment of the stream and put at the top of the description your Patreon that you started. I don't even know. You started it maybe in the middle of last season, perhaps, or a few months ago.
The week before the Super Bowl.
Oh, that was it. Okay. And you've already got over 1,000 members in the Patreon. I'd love for you to take the opportunity to plug it real quick because, man, for Chiefs news and NFL stuff, you're one of the go-tos for me. So would love for you to plug this real quick before we get into the draft.
Yeah, sure, man. Thanks. Yeah, the Matt Verderame Show, which I did not name because of ego. I named it so you can search it easily. But yeah, it's on Patreon. You can You can join up, be a member. There's a $5 a month tier. There's a $10 a month tier. If you're a $5 member, you get 2 pods per week. They're each like an hour long, Monday and Friday. And then the $10 tier is the one where you're getting both of those. You're getting emergency pods, bonus pods, a happy hour every month where you can chat with me in a Zoom call with other members. And then during the season, there's going to be an ungodly amount of content added to it as well. But yeah, there's quite a bit. It's Chiefs focused. We had Trey Smith on like a week and a half ago.
Oh, awesome. Yeah.
We've had Trey Smith, we've had Lewis Riddick, we've had Eric Froton of NBC Sports with the draft. So every week there's a guest. It's been a lot of fun. The reviews have been good, and so if people want to go and subscribe, that would be great.
Yeah, over 1,000 on Patreon that quickly is pretty freaking impressive to me, because that's paid tiers, and that just shows the I think the weight you carry in Chiefs Kingdom as far as a valid voice and the support that you've or just really the name you've built over the years. And I know you said you didn't name the show out of ego, but dude, when you hear Matt Verderame, I hear somebody who is going to give you logical thoughts, but also not be afraid to pull punches and be brutally honest, which is always what I've appreciated about you, man. And speaking about honesty, it seems like you like the Chiefs draft. This is your article from Sports Illustrated where you graded every single team. Would love to go through this, even if it's just briefly, every player, and get thoughts on them. Starting with, first of all, you gave a B+ overall, which that's really about what I gave it. I thought it was well above average. And considering the Chiefs are drafting every single year at the end of the rounds, they just continue to knock it out of the park. But yeah, I would love to get your thoughts. We could go, if you want, round one and then kind of just go from there. First pick, they traded up 4 spots for Xavier Worthy out of Texas. I don't know if I predicted that one. I thought he could have been a guy that landed to them at 32, but it wasn't a huge trade up. So yeah, what were your thoughts on that pick, and were you surprised at all that they moved up to get him?
I wasn't. I'll tell you what, though, when they made the move up, I thought they might be going to get Guyton, because I thought they might just go up and get a tackle, since all the tackles were flying off the board. But to their credit, when they moved up and got Worthy, the receivers started flying off the board. So I guess they sensed that might be coming. The biggest thing that surprised me was that the Bills traded with the Chiefs. I was shocked.
Yeah.
I could not believe that the Bills did that. I was floored Buffalo decided to help Kansas City. Look, I like the Worthy pick. I like it. Like, everybody talks about his 4.2 speed, and that's great. Obviously that's helpful. Yeah. But I like it because he was productive for 3 years at Texas. He was healthy for 3 years at Texas. He got better. He's a guy who I think will help them in the return game. In a return game now that with the new rules, I think is going to be a lot more impactful than it's been in recent years. I like the fact with him that he's a guy, when you look at him, he can run routes. It's not just, hey, I can run a fast 40 time and I'm going to go flying down the sideline. He's the kind of guy that I was curious to see where he would go in terms of, like, does he have a creative coach? Does he have a creative scheme? Well, you couldn't find a more creative scheme. You couldn't find a better place to go to than Kansas City. So I love the pick. I think it's a really good fit. Am I worried about his weight? Yeah, I think you got to be a little bit. He's 165 pounds. Like, I weighed that when I was in 8th grade. Like, there's a concern about that. Okay. Now, the problem was in 8th grade, I also ran like a 6'2", 40. So it's a little bit different. But the weight is the one thing that concerns me. I know Brett Veach talked about getting him up to like 175, 180. If they do that and he still maintains most of that speed, I'd feel really good about that.
Yeah, there's definitely players that have been able to carve out successful career paths. Again, it's not a ton, but Deshaun Jackson, pretty similar build. There's a couple in the NFL now that are somewhat similar. I understand the reservations, I think, about his size and being able to fight through contact and even possibly getting pressed at the line and stuff like that. But I think if anybody can figure out a very just unique and scheme-friendly way to use him, it's going to be the Kansas City Chiefs. Motion, pre-snap, stuff where you're going to have him moving, so you're not even going to have a chance at times to press him at the line. Right. Deep threat like MVS, yes, but he can do more than that. And then, he'll be a solid returner, I would think, for the team. I actually wondered if before the draft, McCole Hardman could have been maybe a veteran option after the draft on a cheaper 1-year deal. Maybe he still could, but with the Worthy pick and him potentially also handling the return duties, I'm kind of like, well, I don't know. I guess we'll see. But yeah, I like the pick a lot. And I was surprised they traded up for him. I thought he could potentially be there at 32, but Veach and company weren't so sure, and he made it seem like they were calling teams to trade up around pick 20, pick 21. I don't know if that could have been for Brian Thomas Jr. or not, who went to the Jags, but they made it seem like it was for Worthy even that early, and that was their guy, and they got their guy. So that was round one. For the second round, they did another small trade up to 63, but they got offensive tackle. I'm gonna take a stab at his last name. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong here, but Kingsley Suamataia out of BYU. Andy Reid had his eyes on him for a while. I know he went there and has a soft spot for guys, but he literally had an eye on him for like 10 picks. They said Andy Reid was sweating, hoping that they could get him. What were your thoughts on them getting an offensive tackle that did split his time at right and left, but did most recently play left side to bring along to the tackle room and maybe compete for a spot with Wanye Morris?
I mean, I think, look, the two biggest things they had were tackle and receiver. And they were able to, I know they had to make slight trade-ups, but for the most part, I think got pretty good value. I mean, Suamataia was a guy that a lot of people thought he might go in the first round, might go, early second round. So if you're the Chiefs, I think you feel pretty damn good about getting him at the bottom end of the second. Does he start? We'll see. I think that's probably a legitimate competition. It should be. I mean, it's not like Morris was a 7th round pick. He was a 3rd round pick. So if you're Kansas City, I think you're willing to go forward and see exactly how this shakes out. Look, bottom line is the Chiefs needed to add a tackle. They got a guy at a good value. He's known as a pass blocker over a run blocker. I think for the Chiefs, that's fine by you. So,
yes.
And again, another guy like Worthy, like a lot of experience, and both of them young guys. Like Worthy was actually 20 years old when the Chiefs drafted him. He turned 21 during the draft. Suamataia, I believe, is 21 years old right now. So the Chiefs have, it's not they got guys who are experienced, but not guys who were there for like 6 years. I think that's valuable. It says there's still room to grow, and it's not like maybe the guys are the ceiling already, and you're just hoping to correct a little thing here or there.
Could you see them maybe still potentially snagging somebody cheap, but like Donovan Smith or something later? I mean, Brett Veach just spoke today and said if they were going to add, they're going to see how things go first, and then they'll look at adding veteran. He didn't even, I don't know if he answered it about a specific position or not, but even with that being said, with the addition of Kingsley, then you've got Wanye heading into year 2. Do you think they could still potentially add a vet? Is that maybe something you would be hoping to see, even if Donovan wasn't even the starter after all is said and done?
I think it depends. I mean, they're gonna get a light look at these guys in OTAs and minicamp. I mean, let's be real; they're not going to be out there cracking pads, and so it's kind of hard to evaluate that. But like, I wouldn't be surprised if they get to August 1st and they add somebody who's a vet, if Donovan Smith is even still around, something like that. But I will also say sometimes I think there's this thought of like, well, if you add a veteran, then at least you're kind of insulating yourself from a big mistake. Sometimes you just got to, rip the Band-Aid off too. I mean, Morris has been there for a year, and he played okay when he was in there. He had some ups, he had some downs, but that's to be expected. And Suamataia, the guy's a top 65 pick. Like, look, can you play? I mean, I do think there is a level of like, go see what you've got. I wouldn't be upset if they brought in Donovan Smith, but I think there is also too like, don't give yourself that crutch. Like, what do you have? I would not be surprised if they bring him back, but I do think genuinely they're going to give these kids a shot at the job.
Yeah, that's why I'm like, even if he's brought back and doesn't even earn the starting role, like hey, you're coming back, but you got to fight for the spot. And even if it's just from a depth perspective I still have flashbacks and PTSD from Super Bowl 55. We don't need to go down that road, but just the more valuable depth you have there, the better, in my opinion. But I like the pick, and it was much needed. We all figured, or most of us said, hey, it's most likely in some combo going to be wide receiver tackle early. One thing I did not necessarily see coming as early as it did, which when they traded up for Worthy, the Chiefs traded with the Bills, but they swapped 3rd and 4ths, right? So they didn't have a 3rd, but their very next pick after Kingsley was actually Jared Wiley, tight end out of TCU. I I like the idea, and I mean, when you look at the tight end room, Noah Gray on his last year, Blake Bell's a free agent, probably not coming back. Irv Smith Jr. signed a 1-year deal. Travis Kelce, obviously the GOAT, but he's not getting any younger, and he's still got years of production, I think, obviously, but it's just good to think about the future of that room. And this was an intriguing signing to me. Somebody who led all of college football in tight ends with touchdowns, could be a red zone threat. He was praised for his blocking. He's not Kelce, but he can run some routes, and there is some promise there. Would love to hear your thoughts on Jared Wiley.
Look, I think he's a guy who, physically profiles a lot like Travis Kelce. 6'6",
Yep.
250. Very similar body type. He's a guy who can run a little bit. He ran a 4.6 40. But look, he's going to compete for that, tight end 3 job with Irv Smith Jr. I don't think the Chiefs have a whole hell of a lot invested in Irv Smith Jr. Like, that might be one of those things where if he doesn't show well in camp, maybe he doesn't make the team. So if you're the Chiefs, look, I thought they would take a tight end at some point. I did. I just felt like with Bell not being there, Fortune's gone. Do they try to add to that room? And they do here with Wiley. Played 5 years in college, first at Texas, then transferred over to TCU the last couple of years. Didn't have a great quarterback situation with the Horned Frogs last year. So, look, I think he's interesting. I think that's one of those picks, like, take the kid on his measurables. He's big. He's got length. He's been fairly productive, pretty productive, as you mentioned earlier with the touchdowns. And you know what? He gets to sit there and learn from Travis Kelce. Like, how does it look in year 2 or year 3 for him? I think it's worth taking, and you had the RAS score right there. Like, look, the guy's got major measurables in athletic traits. Like, take a shot at him. It's a 4th-round pick. If it doesn't work out, you're not out anything. So I think the Chiefs saw an opportunity to maybe grab a low floor but a high upside guy in the 4th round in a position of developmental need, and they went for it.
Between Irv Smith Jr. just signing a 1 year and then that pick there, I do like how it raised the floor at the very least, even if it's just for the short term. It does improve the competition in that room. And just what you said, like Irv Smith Jr., he doesn't ball out. You never know if they only opt to go with 3 tight ends. I mean, that's right. Kelce, Noah Gray, and maybe Wiley. So I do like the ad. It was an intriguing pick. I don't know that I expected them to go tight end for their 3rd pick overall, but again, don't hate it. Then 2 picks later, they grabbed what, I don't know if this is a steal of the draft for me, but it's a great steal and another, like, how the heck did the Chiefs do it again pick, especially for defense, when they drafted defensive back Jaden Hicks out of Washington State. And he is a safety, and that's why I was confused at first, but when you start looking into how he plays, you can move him all around. They use him to blitz. They didn't use him a ton, protecting deep ball, but middle of the field, was blitzing, had like 2.5 sacks last year, I think is what it was. Bunch of tackles for loss. Yeah. 2 interceptions. So this was one of those picks that Dane Brugler had number 1 overall safety on his draft board. I loved the pick once I started studying it. What were your thoughts?
I think in terms of the value, I think he's my favorite pick in the draft for the Chiefs.
Yep.
He just, you turn on 5 minutes of this kid, and I know why they took him. He fits everything they do. He can play slot. He can play deep middle. He can play strong. He can play down in the box. He's an incredible blitzer. I had Eric Froton on my pod on this Monday morning, this morning, and he talked about the fact that this kid had a 43% success rate on blitzes. Like, that's what they use him for. When I watched him on tape, my first thought was he reminds me of Justin Reed. Like, that's who he reminds me of when I watch him play. So the question now is, like, how the hell do they get him on the field? Because they've got a million guys back there. But, that stuff always tends to work itself out. Unfortunately, guys get hurt. Maybe you start out with a package where he gets on the field and then you expand it from there. I remember last year when they drafted Shamari Connor, and I talked to somebody in the building who was like, look, we took him because he's a special teams ace. Like, that's why we took him. And that's his main function. And then that same person in August was like, no, this kid's going to play on defense, actually. This kid is a lot more ahead of schedule than we thought he was. And then early on, he really didn't play a lot on defense. He played a couple snaps here and there. And then Brian Cook got hurt, and they needed him. and the kid stepped up and was great. So, unfortunately, it's the NFL. Guys get injured. Stuff happens. I think Hicks is going to play. I really do. I think he's going to play a reasonable amount for them as a fourth round rookie.
Yeah, I love the pick. He played a lot of special teams too. So even if he's just coming in and he's doing what Shamari did initially last year, just contributing heavily on special teams and then answering the bell if his name gets called due to injuries or whatnot. I'm excited also to see Shamari year 2. You can move him all around. You can move Hicks all around. You got Brian Cook returning. Hopefully he's all good and stuff from the ankle injury that was pretty gnarly. But yeah, the safety room looks good. And I know Snead was a safety at least his senior year of college, and they kind of crafted out a role for him as a defensive back, playing a lot of corner. But yeah, so with Snead gone, I love the pick, and I know they got a corner later that we could talk about. But yeah, I'm excited for Hicks, and it's just one of those picks I saw it and I was like, they did it again, which was pretty exciting. The very next pick, it was just one that made sense. You need interior O-line. Allegretti's with the Commanders. Tooney's got a couple years left, but he did have a pretty decent pec injury at least that didn't allow him to finish the season. And then Trey Smith on the last year of his deal. So you've got Hunter Norzad was the 5th round pick, and he's out of Penn State, offensive lineman. He's played 4 out of the 5 offensive line positions, everything but left tackle. A couple years at right tackle, right guard, left guard, I think. But then I think most recently at center. So you kind of got a guy that could play all around the line. What were your thoughts when they drafted Hunter Norzad?
I think he's another guy who kind of just fits what they do. I mean, they like versatility. They like guys who can play and move around. I mean, Tooney's a guy who can play all over the line. Allegretti was a guy who plays center and guard. They have guys who have been able to shift around. And Norzad's a guy who very intelligent. I mean, hell, he played at Cornell, so he's got some smarts. And that was something with Tooney. So Joe Tooney, when he was coming out for the draft, his agent told him, don't do as well as you can do on the Wonderlic because teams are going to look at you and think you're too smart for the NFL. Really, and believe it or not, that's a thing. Teams actually look at a guy and go, well, is he too intelligent? Is he not is he more focused on this, that, and the other than he is on football? So Tooney actually purposely missed a few questions on his Wonderlic test, just because he didn't want to have a perfect score. And I think that Norzad's a kid like that. I think she's valued Tooney's intelligence. I think they'll value Norzad's intelligence. I think he's the kind of kid. Early on, he's backup, going to develop. Obviously, they have their interior set. But Trey Smith's a free agent after this year. And Joe Tooney is not a free agent after this year. He's after 2025, but who knows how that goes. He's got a big contract. Humphrey is a free agent after this year. So there's uncertainty there. And I think that's why the Chiefs brought in both he and Hansen in the 7th round to kind of hedge their bets just in case something happens.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up if you didn't too, because I didn't mention it a second ago, but Creed is also on a contract year. I am of the opinion that they try to work something out with him, maybe even sooner rather than later, sometime within the next couple of months. If you're looking at between Creed, Trey Smith, and Nick Bolton, I would think Creed's going to be one of those guys that they do try to work out long-term, but you never really know. So yeah, that's another spot at the O-line where it's well, the future is still, at least for us or me, I'm more outsider than you are, but outside looking in, don't know if Creed will for sure return for years to come, though I certainly hope that he does. Pick 6 for the Chiefs was a 6th round defensive back, Kamal Hadden out of Tennessee. He was having a pretty good season before he injured his shoulder and needed surgery. So it was cut short in October, but had a ton of pass breakups, a bit of a ball hawk, kind of an I don't know how much you watched of him. I didn't watch a ton, but what I did see, I was like, man, this guy is really aggressive. Snead-like traits. I'm not going to be so quick to say he's Snead, but just some Snead-like traits when I saw his play style. What's your take on him?
He's big, he's physical, likes to play press. Biggest question with him is injuries. I mean, he had the shoulder injury this past year, 2021, in 2022. He missed some time. Played 7 games in 2021. He played, I think, 9 in 2022. So that's the concern. He's not fast. That is the other thing. I think he ran a 4.6. But when you watch him, Like he's pretty good at anticipating routes and kind of staying with guys. But if you're wondering like why did he fall, he fell because of injury concerns and he fell because he ran a 4.6. That's why he fell. I think if you just watched his tape and said, okay, well, what is this kid's talent level? He might be more of a mid-round pick. But the questions are, can he stay healthy? Can he run well enough? I mean, you see right there. I mean, it's not terrible. It's not, it's a 7.5. Like, it's not awful. It's in the top 75% of corners since 1987. But it's, it leaves something to be desired. Now, that being said, the guy he reminds me of profile-wise is Jalen Watson. Like, longer guy, likes to get his hands on you, doesn't have top-end speed, but just he's a technician. That guy's fine if that guy has safety over him. And it's with the way the Chiefs play. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. So, look, they'll get Dave Merritt coaching him up. They'll have Spags coaching him up. And that's kind of the thing with the Chiefs at this point. Like that coaching staff, you just trust it. Like you just say, okay, if you like that corner, I mean, when is the last time they took a corner who just flat out couldn't play? It's been a while. So I think for them, you kind of go, okay, you like the length, you like the physicality, you like the scheme fit, go coach him.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see what that looks like because the DB room is already. I mean, I know Snead's gone, but man, you got a lot of people in there. Aside from McDuffie, who's a staple, but Watson, Joshua Williams, you got Nick Jones, Nazi Johnson is returning after tearing his ACL, and he is super athletic too. So there's a lot to look at in that room, and I'll be curious to see kind of how it pans out. I would think if he makes that roster, talking about Haddon, it would probably have a role also of some special teams as well. So maybe he didn't test as high on his RAS, but I will say the next pick, the 7th round guard out of Holy Cross, CJ Hansen. I mean, this guy, he's an athlete. I'm not sure what to expect of him at this point in time, being a 7th, but Isaiah Pacheco was a 7th round pick. Trey Smith, 6th round pick. This guy's RAS, I mean, it's not what it's all about, but he's just an athlete. And if you can get him in the hands of Andy Reid, Andy Heck to mold and shape, especially as in the interior with, again, Tooney, a couple years left, Trey Smith, contract year, and this guy is an absolute athlete, 9.84.
Right.
What were your thoughts on that? I don't know that I saw a guard coming, but when I saw the pick, I was like, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
I think it's one of those deals. Look, man, 7th round, the kid has insane athleticism, but he is 300 pounds. Like he's probably going to have to add some weight here. I mean, I think it's a flyer. It's a flyer. I think in the 7th round, that point, you're just taking a kid who, look, you think he's got some traits you like, and you're going to turn him over to Andy Heck, kind of like I just said about Haddon and Dave Merritt. Like you're going to turn Hansen over to Andy Heck, and say, hey, here, go for it. See what happens. Interesting pick. I don't know. I'm not like strongly for or against it. I think that if they can put 15 pounds on the kid, see what he gives you. But small school, Holy Cross, All-American at that level, the lower level of collegiate ball. He'll come in, he'll compete for a backup job. But I think they needed to add some depth, and they've gone out and they've done that. Now, see if he can land on the final 53.
Yeah, exactly, man. Is your opinion still about here after sitting on this a couple more days, just being able to stew on the Chiefs draft? Would you still say, yeah, B+, feeling well above average about it, and they did pretty well?
Yeah, I think I had a handful of Chiefs fans like, why isn't it an A or an A-? I'm like, look, it's hard to be an A or an A- when your first pick is in like the late 20s.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it just is. And like part of it too is they had to trade up twice. So like I dinged them a little bit there, not because it's necessarily a bad trade. It's just like you're giving up some capital. So like you're moving back in other spots. If you want to take out like the value of the trades and whatnot, like you want to make it an A-, that's cool. I'm fine with that. But it's hard. Like, the Chargers for me got an A. Well, the Chargers are picking 5th. Like they should get.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a hell of a lot easier to get an A when you're picking 5th. You're picking 12th and 13th. Although I had the Broncos way behind the Chiefs. And if I had the Chiefs, I think I had the Broncos at a C+ or something like that. And I don't even. And that was, I think, somewhat generous, quite frankly. Like I had other teams where the Chiefs were drafting. I mean, the Ravens got a B+, but like the Bills got a C-. Like, I thought the Bills were one of the worst drafts of any team in the league. Like I thought the Bengals were okay as a B- or C+, somewhere in that range. I thought the Chiefs, considering where they were drafting, I thought they did an excellent job. And yeah, I think it's a B-plus class.
I really appreciate your time weighing in. Always good to hear from you. I do have one more question before you get out of here if you want to weigh in a little bit here, but Justin sent a 20 bomb. Appreciate you, man. And he just said, what are some other teams in your opinion that had a great draft? You talk about some teams where they ranked in comparison to the Chiefs, but if you're like, hey, here's a couple off the top of my head that really nailed it. And even though the Chiefs rather were well above average, but who are some teams in your eyes that were just like, man, they hit it out of the park?
I thought the Steelers had the best draft in the league. I thought the Steelers, look, they added 3 offensive linemen, Fatanu and McCormick and Frazier. Fatanu is one of my favorite guys. He can play guard, he can play tackle. McCormick is a guard all day long out of South Dakota State. Frazier's a center out of West Virginia. They added real good value in the 3rd round, I thought, with a pair of guys who are interesting. You had Roman Wilson, the receiver out of Michigan, and Peyton Wilson, the linebacker, who, look, I get there's concerns about the medical, but like that kid was a stud for years at North Carolina State. So I thought they did really well. I thought Philly, as usual, did well. They got a couple of corners and tremendous value in Mitchell and Dejan. They got I like Jalix Hunt, so I thought they did well. I thought the Chargers did really well. I like Cam Hart, and I like Brendan Rice, Jerry Rice's son, as big time value picks. Are 2 of my favorite guys on day 3. They got them both. Alt and McConkey got them as well. But yeah, I mean, I thought, the Bear. I mean, to me, if you want to talk about who moved the needle the most, probably the Bears. They got a Dunze and they got Caleb Williams. Like, they only drafted 4 kids, but they probably impacted their team more than anybody. So there were a lot of classes, but I think the Chiefs are firmly. If you want to, if you did a bell curve and you adjusted it for like where teams picked compared to the value they got, I think the Chiefs had a top 5 draft.
I've seen Warren Sharp doing his breakdowns of the draft on teams that reached versus got value where they drafted, and the Chiefs were top 5 in like every metric. If you looked draft wide, rounds 1 through 7, but also rounds 1 through 3, I think the Chiefs were right around the top 5 too. So all I can say is I understand. I'm a homer. I'm a lifelong Chiefs fan, born and raised in KC, still live here. I just think that I think Brett Veach killed it. I understand I'm biased, but when you look around and you see other people agreeing, I'm like, thank you. Let's go. We got another one. Keeps getting better year in and year out. I don't know if he'll be able to top. Maybe this year will, but I don't know if he'll be able to top. Was it 2022 with McDuffie, Karlaftis, and they had some extra picks there from the Hill trade that they were able to move up and do some stuff. But man, they've been killing it. And when you've got a team that have some big contracts, like we've talked about earlier in this video, just what you said, you've got to stay young and you've got to get athletes that you think can fit your scheme and can develop, and that's got to translate. So I feel like they did it again. And I appreciate your time again, guys. Make sure to follow Matt on Twitter if you're not. He's got 34,000 followers, always posting good stuff on there. And then feel free to subscribe to his Patreon. He's doing all kinds of good stuff there. If you're wanting, it's news, it's NFL wide, yes, but Chiefs focus, and man, you're dropping a bunch of gems. So appreciate you. Thank you so much for your time.
Hey, you got it, man. Anytime.
All right, have a good one.
Too.
Awesome, guys. Well, there was the interview with Matt Verderame of Sports Illustrated. That guy is crushing it. Really appreciate his time. And I just wanted to take a second to acknowledge all the people in chat. There are some good questions, but just really wanted to pick his brain about the draft. I will go live. Today's Monday. I will go live tomorrow night for the Q&A, and we'll talk draft and some other stuff like that. But Georgiana, thanks for the membership. Justin with the 20 bomb. We answered that one. Other teams had a great draft. Appreciate that. Derek with the 5 gifted. Marcus with the gifted. Jennifer as well. Justin with another 20 bomb. And I appreciate you, man, because I know you're an Eagles fan, but you're really supportive of the channel. He said, hey, guys, being in Pennsylvania, saw plenty of PSU. He had a lot of potential, but when he faced better pass rushes, Ohio State and Michigan, he struggled and did so again against Ole Miss. Needs to cook, but could work out. And when you're talking about PSU, who exactly are you talking about? Off the top of my head, those initials are escaping me. So feel free to let me know in chat who PSU is. I feel like it's an obvious abbreviation, but it's not clear to me off the top of my head. Bud with the 14 months as well. Oh, Penn State. Okay. Heck yeah. Appreciate you guys. Thanks so much for hanging out. The members only Zoom call. Marcus was asking about it. Let's see. We might actually be doing it tonight because we're about out of time. So thanks, Marcus, for reminding me that. I'm going to go talk with my boss, aka Danny. I'll probably schedule it for tonight at 8 p.m. And if you guys can come and hang out, let's run it. We'll talk draft and just kind of hang out and see you guys. Appreciate everybody hanging out. Thanks so much. And until next time, let's go. Let's freaking go. Please hit the outro.
How about